Welcome to Jazz Talk. My name is Steve Williams. You got a sneak preview of our guest here. And I'm originally from Italy and now lives in Massachusetts and teaches at Berklee College of Music, Giovanni Moltoni.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, nice having you. So if we could talk about a little bit about your background, what guitarist, or if different artists have different inspirations, or sometimes it's not necessarily a guitar player, but maybe a piano player or something like that. Who originally influenced you to play the guitar?
The guitar, I would say probably rhythm blues or guitar solos, or
Right.
when I was a kid,
Right.
and that's how it started for me. I was like, man, that's cool, And then it became jazz rather quickly, because what I was really into was the actual playing of the instrument, So
Right.
when I decided to become a guitar player, then the kind of going into the jazz direction came almost by itself,
Right.
because there was a lot of stuff that I really liked about it,
Yeah. So you mentioned to me a few of your influences. Was Pat Metheny be one of them?
Yeah, Pat, definitely, Scofield, all of those cats, they're definitely, Jim Hall,
Right. Bill Frisell,
Bill Frisell, absolutely, and Bill Evans. That was always, a great inspiration for me. It had wonderful voicings and a beautiful sound. And it was great.
Right.
The duos with Jim Hall were wonderful.
Oh, Jim Hall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that really was also Jim Hall and Ron Carter. I remember those duos,
the duo
live at the restaurant
That's
gigs
right.
and concerts. Those are some of my earliest memories, of jazz that I really loved. It was like, my God, this is wonderful. It's beautiful.
Right.
Of course, Charlie Parker and other people as well. But being a guitar player, obviously, Jim Hall or people like that, then you actually want to learn from them.
Right.
So, and then from there it just started.
Right.
Yeah, I came here, it was 1989.
Yeah.
So.
And then your first CD came out in 1995 called Directions.
Yes. Yes.
And you were still a student at NEC working on your master's at the time.
Yes. I think it was the second year of my master. I was in school. It was basically the first semester of the second year.
Yeah.
And we recorded the CD, and it came out a year after that. I think it was '96. Publicly.
With Paul Nero on bass and Hal Crook and Marcello
Pellitteri. On the drums.
Yeah.
But wonderful band, great musicians,
Right.
and they worked really well together already at the time. So it was wonderful for me to play with them.
And the thing about it was it was kind of a mixed kind of a CD. It would the rhythm, bass, and drum were basically playing like straight ahead stuff. And your guitar playing was kind of rockish a little bit on some of the tunes.
At times,
and then you had another amalgamation of Hal Crook with his kind of out stuff on the trombone, because he used digital pedals and stuff.
Harmonizers.
Digital harmonizers.
And distortion too.
And distortion. So it didn't have a true, at times it did have a true trombone sound, but at times it didn't. So it was kind of a mixed amalgamation of...
Yes, very, very different things, That's why it's called Directions, We were just, exploring. And I thought it worked out really well. His distortion and the harmonizer was really, it was a a great box that he was using, and the sound was very good. You know, we were
Yeah.
able to use it almost straight out. You know, we recorded with it.
Yeah.
We didn't add it or anything. It was
Right,
just,
right.
it was just,
Yeah.
you know, it was going directly in.
And as we talked about it before, it was quite a lengthy recording session. It was like literally an all-day project.
Yes, all
Get
day
it done.
and one day.
In one day,
We,
yeah.
we went there. We arrived there. It was, my guess would be 9:30. You
Yeah.
know, and then of course, you know, drink some coffee. You set up. It takes a little bit of time for the sound engineer to set everybody out,
Right.
microphones and everything. And then we played for 6 hours, 4 or 5 hours. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, not all the, you know, we play a tune and then, you know, and then after a while we would just listen. But most of the stuff was actually a first take. We
Yeah,
just
right.
played through and
Right.
yeah.
And the nice thing about it that we talked about is the engineer that was on this, Peter Kutremis.
Yes, very
who's
nice
a
guy.
professional bassist himself.
Absolutely.
And an engineer. So it for someone's first project, I'm sure it was really a load off your mind that you didn't have to worry about the mix, how it was going to turn out. And
Absolutely. And that was wonderful. I just, you know, gave him the whole thing. You know, it was like, I want this, you know, and
Right.
how do I do it? You know, and he would just do it. You know, it was
Right.
beautiful. Hal actually came to the mix session as well. You know, we took a few weeks, you know, just to listen, and then we went back together. We did the mix, a lot of the mix together, and so he had a very direct input on the sound and how, you know, the stuff that he had, you know, was working and all that.
Yeah.
You know, so it was great. You know, they really helped me out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I was
and
young.
they've been playing for years prior
Yes.
to you
Yes.
doing
Yeah.
this, so
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
really experienced musicians.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I was the kid at the
Right,
time.
that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it felt like it too.
Right, I'm
You
sure.
know? Yeah.
I'm sure.
But from the musicians and from the band, I never felt any, you know, anything. You know, they were all super cool. And
Right.
We were good friends. We still are. You know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
And
wonderful.
you still perform with Paul Del Nero?
Yeah,
now and
sometimes
then?
we played together not a year ago with our department at school, and we
Yeah.
played some stuff together.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, like maybe 2002 or so, you did something called Open Ground
Yes.
with Paul and Bob Tangerini.
Well, Tamani.
Tamani,
Yeah.
who's your regular drummer these
Yes.
days.
Yeah, yeah. And that was actually
Just a trio
It's
thing.
just a trio.
And,
yeah.
this one was more of a jazz effort, purely jazz.
Yes.
It wasn't rockish. It didn't
Yeah.
have an out kind of thing. So I guess you just wanted to go in a different direction than Directions.
Yes, yeah. I wanted to have something more focused on the guitar, you know.
Yeah.
And the trio was a good solution for
Yeah.
that. And it was also in that period we were playing as a trio a
Yeah.
lot, you know. So that came out of all the arrangements of the new music was done for the trio, you know. So basically to go in the studio and do the CD as a trio was sort of like a natural consequence of it. You know, I mean, you know, I love the quartet. I still play with the quartet. It's not, you know, it was just that period. It was like that, you know, and like for most of my CDs, if not all of them, is
They're
really
all a little different from each other.
Yes, yes, and there are periods of my life as well. You know,
Yeah.
So
Right. The nice thing about it is that you put it out yourself. These newer ones.
Yes.
And because a lot of companies are afraid of the direction you go in, because a lot of artists tend to like to, how should we say, connect the dots. One record sounds like the next one. It's a takeoff of this and a takeoff of that.
Right.
And that's what some people would call it playing it safe. I think this approach, having different ones, is more challenging.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
It makes you, I think, in a lot of ways, a better musician for it, because you're not dependent on the last CD or the one before. They're all new projects, so it
Yes.
brings a freshness to it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's to me that's very important. I remember Jim Hall saying once, "Oh, I never look back," and I like that.
Yeah.
It's like it's a different. 2002, I was a different person. 2005 is different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then you did one, the Giovanni one.
The title is 3. Yeah, and that was the first CD with the new quartet.
Yeah.
But we were already playing together. This came about, I would guess, about a year and a half after we were playing.
And the personnel changed a little bit. Greg Hopkins is on the trumpet. I guess he plays a little flugelhorn, but he plays trumpet.
Yes,
mostly.
absolutely, and it freely flips in between the two also live.
And Fernando Huguero, who
Fernando
plays
Huguero,
the bass.
plays the bass, and Bobby Tamagni on the
Bob
the
Tamagni,
drums.
your regular drummer. And that's an interesting group in itself because it changes things again.
It does.
As you know, Greg Hopkins started teaching at Berkeley back in '74. Yeah. But prior to that, in the early '70s, he played with Buddy Rich.
That's right.
And there was a number of guys in that band that were Berkeley guys too, Jeff Stout, and there was a guy, Rick Stempleton, a trombone player. They all played in like '70, '72, and during that time of Buddy Rich's career. Yeah. So performing with somebody like that who has, Greg has a ton of stories.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's done big bands, small group, he's done like classical stuff. So what kind of things do you like ask him? When you doing this project, did you like for advice on tunes and how do I, because prior to this you didn't record with a horn player, so that changes things. Besides Hal Crook.
Right. It did change the dynamics. Sorry. It did change the dynamics of. I am very sorry about this. It changed the dynamics of the group in many ways. I mean, the trombone is a lower register instrument, and the trumpet is higher. I do like the brightness that the band gets with the trumpet. I mean, so far as the range goes, I really like, because the guitar is sort of like, can be like a cello almost. Like middle low, right? And the trumpet is middle high, and then there is the bass, so there is a nice, not that, Hal can play the trombone almost as high as a trumpet player. It's unbelievable. So it's not,
it's not great facility that way.
It's not about that, but the general sound is different,
and even the way you play the guitar is slightly different from the early recordings. I noticed there's a little edge of fusion in your playing, just a slight, like a sprinkling of that in there.
A little bit. I mean,
is that because of playing with Greg Hopkins? Did he kind of like, let's try this? Why did you try doing that, or it's just something on your own?
No, it just happened, I think. And Greg is a very contemporary kind of player. So his technique, and he's a great composer. So
that's
sometimes we do talk about the music.
And he wrote a few tunes for the
we always
Rich's
play.
band.
There is a nice one from him in the live CD as well, which was so new that we never rehearsed. So we got to the gig, and then Greg leaves the stage for a second, comes back with pencil papers, and it's like, hey, I just finished this tune, let's try, And we played it, and it landed on the CD. We were all side reading Greg's music.
And it coincides with the other one. Yes. That's
it's about, you know, the 3 came out, and then almost a year later, actually it was released, and then about a year and a half later, we had a party concert, a release concert, you know,
at Riles in Cambridge.
At Riles, yeah, and that's the concert that eventually became that CD. You know, for a while I just had the recording. I didn't really think about it, and then I went back and listened. I was like, oh man, it sounds good. You know, so we decided to pull it out.
Yeah. And it's nice that you have Fernando Higuero on the electric bass.
Yes.
And he brings his own Latin influences and played on a number of Latin records.
Absolutely.
So that adds another flavor to the music that's different from Paul Del Nero, who plays the acoustic bass primarily.
Yes, it's a different vibe. I mean, Fernando has a very clean sound. You know, he's an electric bass player, but it feels very acoustic. You know, in the way he plays. You know, it's a very natural sound.
And that is a little different for some of the electric bass players, because they like to use little pedals and effects to give it another color.
He's a purist in that respect, and his sound is always impeccable. He's a wonderful musician, and we did some of his music as well in the last CD. They tuned from him. I don't know why this is.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's one of the most popular guitarists out there. That's why he keeps getting these calls. That's what it has to be.
It's got to be. Let me tell you something. I'm going to turn the sound off on this thing, and there. Cool. Sorry. Popularity is, I don't think it has anything to do with it, but it's just I forgot to turn it off. My apologies.
That's okay. Yeah. So, was there a lot of pre-planning for the Riles gig, the live CD, or just you had tunes that you regularly performed and just decided to do them?
We played some of the music from the CD because you know, it was the new CD, so we wanted to celebrate that. But also we played some new music, and Greg's brand new tune was one of them. You know, that we didn't rehearse. We got together for a rehearsal, but you know, the music wasn't there. You know, so when we got on the gig, we just played it. You know, that was you know, one of those like wonderful accidents that happened.
Yeah. So it was you had to do just a straight read. He had the sheet up there, or did you?
Yes. But it basically finished it on the way. You know, it was all pencil. You know, very light pencil. You know, it was difficult to read with the lights.
So that means your sight reading skills had to be really good to kind of.
Yeah, well, you know.
When you're on the spot like that, it has to be.
It has to be. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm sure. The faculty up at Berkeley impresses on the students is that you need to be able to be fully equipped to do the job. And that means if someone pulls up with a thing that they just finished, you need to be able to do it.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, this is definitely not my favorite thing to go on the show.
I think most people don't like that high pressure. There are some musicians that do.
Right, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, probably the ones that have wonderful sight reading skills, you know, it's.
Now you teach ear training.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Ear training at Berkeley, we try to connect ear training to the musical lives of our students. You know, so a lot of what we do is we talk about what you need when you're on stage, for example, or how to relate to arrangements, or how important it is to be able to, you know, hear what's going on in the music. You know? And if you are a performer, of course, you know, and you are on stage, I mean, you know, that kind of stuff comes handy, you know. But even if you are a composer, just like in building sounds in your head and being able to play them, you know, it's crucial to us.
Yeah, it is crucial.
It's an art form. You know, it's not necessarily, you know. Of course, you know, some of our students have perfect pitch. Some of them have relative pitch. You know, but everybody, the musical ear is a very complex kind of thing.
It is complex, and I think if you're a serious musician and not a lazy one, it's always growing. You're always
Absolutely.
learning more and more and more
Absolutely.
how to add it in your head. Because like a lot of gigs, the sheet music's not there, so you need to know how to.
That's very true. Recordings as well. You know, like especially pop and rock. You might be surprised how many of that recordings don't have music, and then you have to kind of pick up the chords on the way and go like, oh, so you want me to do this or that? You know, and
or you might play and you know, halfway through a line, the leader or whatever of the band decides to bridge and go somewhere else.
Yes.
And then you got to know how to figure that out, how to do that.
And how to fix it, how to fix it too, while you play.
So you're not sounding like someone's lagging behind.
Right.
Because it's obvious to the average listener.
Very
You're
true.
lagging behind, you're not following the train of thought.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's very dangerous for us in a way, you know, because you really don't want to be in that position if you can avoid it, you know.
That's how you become unemployed.
Quickly. Yeah, quickly.
Right? Yeah. Especially at the level you're playing at. There's not too much room for mistakes. You know?
Exactly. But on the other hand...
The physical mistakes, being tired playing guitar or drum or whatever, that's one thing, but a goof up is not something that's really
it's not.
recommended.
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's better not, let's put it that way, you know, and our students mostly understand that, you know. I mean, it's a challenge for everybody.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
But when they get into it and they start understanding how it works, then they become more like real musicians, you know. The more sophisticated they become that way, and the more
comes second nature.
Yes, and the more they understand music, the more they, you know, and the self-growth, you know. It's really what comes out of that kind of training. You know, you become more self-aware of what's going on in music, normally just by listening, you know. And that's the fastest way to learn. You know, I remember, like, I remember what was for me that that taught me that actually have good ears was the way to go. And I was basically very young, and I went to see a concert with friends, and then on the way back from the concert, you know, a friend of mine, piano player, you know, with very good ears, much better than mine, which at the time, I was, you know, I just started, you know, I didn't play at all, you know, so for me it was all magic, you know. That this guy was like, hey, you remember when he did that? And he sits on the piano and he plays it back, you know, and I was like, man, you know, this guy is able to learn, you know, from live music. And I was like, that's the way I want to be, you know. And that was really what taught me the importance of being able to relate to music that way, you know.
And back in the day, when the early days of jazz, they didn't have formal education, so it was by ear.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of times.
Absolutely.
And as one musician told me, the bandstand was the teacher. You figured out real quick. Like I joked around with, if you messed up, you know, your job opportunities were very slim and none. So you learned really quick.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, on the stage, I mean, you survive the stage if you have those kind of qualities, or if you have the ability of building them quickly, you know.
A lot of natural ability, a good ear, you know, and discerning skills, how to do that.
Absolutely. And the sophistication, I mean, some of our students are remarkable.
Oh,
know, they really...
Some of them, all it is a formality. The graduation is a formality. They've come...
They are professional
so developed.
musicians. They are definitely professional musicians, and that's wonderful. You know, we're very proud of that.
It makes it a lot easier for the instructors, I'm sure, and challenging at times.
Yes. It's almost. I mean, it's possible to teach when people sees what you see.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a lot more difficult to teach when people doesn't see what you see. And I'm talking about the hearing part. You know, it's like, you know, can you hear this? And if it's not there, I mean, you don't know how to put it there. You know, it's like it's something that we have to work together on this thing.
We have a couple minutes left. We can talk about your latest one called Tomorrow's Past, which was recorded at Studio A at Berkeley in 2012.
2012, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
The same lineup.
Same lineup, same band. This is our
Yeah.
third CD together.
Yeah.
And we've been, now is about, I would guess, in between 8 and 10 years. I don't remember. It's a long time.
And this one's different from the others.
It's different, yeah. It's new music, new arrangements, and some of the music, most of the music is mine.
Right.
Some of Fernando's and some of Greg's music is in
Right.
there too. I also like that about the band.
It's nice that your workload isn't as heavy because you can rely on Greg and Fernando to
Absolutely.
provide some material. So
Absolutely, and the music is beautiful.
And plus, they feel really more part of the project too, not just a side guy. Here's some music, play this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And for me, I mean, in a way, it's almost like extra work. I work harder on their music than on mine because, you know, mine, I know what to do on mine.
That's right.
You know, but then
Right.
I really had to get into the music, and then for the CD particularly, you know, to have something that sounds coherent, you know,
Right.
in the whole project, and
Right.
all the music, in the choice of the voicings, or you know how to arrange the pieces, you know, so that the CD would have a continuous kind of vibe, you know, to it, you know. That to me was important. I feel that I, you know, achieved that to some degree, but
Yeah.
you know, it's always in the, you know, in the.
So we
listener.
have maybe about 2 minutes or so left. If people wanted to know where you were performing, they would go to www.giovannimoltoni.com.
Yes, absolutely.
And then there's a link there, I guess, to your Facebook or whatever.
Yes, Facebook page,
social media you
social
have.
media, you know, YouTube, you know,
Yeah.
some of the stuff we did at Riles is
That's
there,
right.
you know.
The performance you did at Riles for the live CD is on YouTube. So
Some of it, actually, those are different
few
nights.
of the tunes.
But, yes. We didn't have a video for that night. There was a video part of the night, but not the whole thing.
Right.
I was lucky enough to have other nights where we were playing there that people would take videos and we record the music, so I mixed it up and I put not a lot, but a few of those takes.
Yeah, that's right. There's a few things out there.
Yeah.
And plus, people could also put Greg's name in because he has a few things up there too as
Absolutely,
well.
absolutely, yeah. Fernando too, and
Fernando,
I mean, you know, they're all very active professional musicians, you know. So there is a lot of stuff that goes on, you know. Always new music. You know,
that's right. Yeah, and it's always good to have a musician that is not afraid to step out and make new music every single CD. That's really a good thing, I think, as I said earlier in the interview. So, Giovanni Moltoni, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And as I say to every guest at the end of this show, stay tuned for the next episode of Jazz Talk because you never know who will be on the show.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you.